The high stakes truth is that one small misstep in your sales page copy, your email content, or your social media posts could cost you up to $40,000 in legal fees. We are about to break down 4 legal strategies to make sure your coaching business stays FTC compliant and avoids these legal fines. That's why I brought in today's guest, Autumn Witt Boyd, my good friend and a 10 years in seasoned attorney who founded the AWB Firm to help online entrepreneurs stay legally compliant while scaling their businesses. Let's get right into it.
No, just for anyone listening, can you explain what the FTC is, just in case, just to give us context?
Absolutely. I want to give my standard disclaimer, which I always forget, which is I am a lawyer. This is not legal advice. So if you have any of these questions of your own, please reach out to a lawyer. Yes, so the FTC is the Federal Trade Commission. It is a United States agency. So even if you're not in the U.S., if you're selling in the U.S., if you have customers in the U.S., you're probably still governed. Any of your marketing that reaches the U.S. basically is.
Yeah, and who isn't?
Right. Yes.
All my international clients are still selling very
We're a
much
big
in the US.
market. Yes. Yeah. And so their main goal in the area that we're talking about today is really protecting consumers. So they want to make sure that consumers are not being lied to and that companies are delivering on the promises that they're making to consumers. So I sometimes say, following FTC rules, most of the time, if you are an ethical business owner and you are trying to do things the right way and be honest and ethical in your marketing, you're like 95% of the way there. There's just a little bit of nuance, but it's not as hard to comply with, I think, as a lot of people are concerned about.
If you're here and you're listening, then you're going to get the other 5%. So
yes, exactly.
Yay.
All right. So I will dive in. I'm going to go over kind of high level. We're not going to get too in the weeds today, but just kind of high level. The FTC, why does this matter to you? We talked a little bit, if you're doing any kind of online marketing, you are probably subject to FTC regulations. So the core thing to keep in mind with all of these rules we're going to be talking about is it has to be truthful. And it also can't be misleading. So there could be some instances that we'll talk about where you could be saying something that is technically true, but could still be misleading to a consumer. So that's kind of the crux of what we're talking about today. And this matters because if you are on the wrong side of the FTC and they bring an enforcement action against you, the penalties are really, really steep. So right now, $43,792. That's a very specific amount per violation. And think about if you are doing a launch, you might have a sales page, you might have 10 or 20 or 40 emails that you're sending, you might have a social media post, you might have ads. There's a lot of different parts and pieces of a marketing ecosystem. And so each of those, if you're violating these rules in any of those places, it can add up really quickly. The other thing I like to mention is we're talking about the FTC because that is, a federal agency in the United States. It applies to all 50 states and internationally. But many of our individual states also have their own rules around this area. A lot of them kind of mirror the FTC, so there's not a lot of difference, but some of them do create criminal penalties. So the states are also taking this very seriously.
Really?
Yes. Thank you for that face, Jenny. Yes.
That's really intense. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're going after the really bad guys, though, I will say. And that's what I don't want to scare. I'm not a scare tactic kind of girl anyway, but this is definitely one of those things that your problems and your risk grows as your business grows, as your visibility grows. So I don't want to say don't worry about this, but I would say don't let this consume you too much.
Right. If you're just getting started and you're like, oh my gosh, no, I can't have an online business now because this is just too scary. Don't let that be the case because the likelihood of anything happening when you're just getting things figured out is so much smaller than when you're like Amy Porterfield and you're doing these huge launches.
Exactly.
Stuff that she really needs to pay attention to.
Yeah. And so the FTC is really focusing on the big players, multi-million-dollar sometimes international companies, but these state attorney generals, they're the ones who are getting customer complaints. We're seeing really more action with the state attorney generals with the types of businesses that we're working on, which is anywhere from $500,000 to $10 or $20 million. That's still most of the action is happening at the state level.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I just never want anyone to get freaked out.
Agreed. Yeah. So when we're thinking about best practices, we're going to talk about testimonials first. So Jenny, tell me, when you're working with someone on their website, how do you think about testimonials fitting into the picture?
I mean, testimonials are super important because two things that you always want to do on a website in anywhere that you're talking about yourself is you want to show empathy, like you want them to understand that you know how they feel, and you also want to show authority. Like you want to be able to say, I know what I'm talking about because of, this many years of experience and this many clients I've worked with and stuff. But the best way to show authority, honestly, is to have other people saying things about you because of course we're all going to say nice things about ourselves. Client testimonials really, really help to like support that. They help to show authority without saying authoritative things. They just help your potential clients to be able to see themselves in the shoes of your existing clients, which is always like what we want.
For sure. So if we're using testimonials, which I agree, I love a good testimonial, the rules are going to be the same whether it's like a success story, an actual testimonial where it's someone else's words, or a case study. So you could be just writing about one of your clients or customers, or even a hypothetical. So that would be like, imagine if this person could do such and such. Those are all treated the same. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But there's kind of 3 steps that we walk through. So step 1 is you have to make sure that whatever the testimonial says, whatever they're bragging about that they accomplished with you, is actually true. It really happened. This is the most big of a deal with things that have numbers in them. So like I 10x'd my revenue. I had a $10,000 launch. I made $50,000 in 2 weeks using XYZ process. Those number claims, percentages, increase, all of those are going to be under the microscope. If you're using more general claims like I feel so much better or like I have more confidence, some of those a little bit more ooey gooey kinds of results that aren't as hard, you get a little more leeway with that, frankly, because those are not going to be as convincing. They're not going to be potentially as deceptive to people who are landing on your website. If you have someone with a really concrete claim in their testimonial, like Jenny helped me 10x my revenue, then you need to make sure that that's actually true. There's no rule about what proof or evidence you have to gather. But I sometimes like to say, if you had to go to Judge Judy and she's like, how do we know this is true? Think about that. So obviously you want some record of it in writing, whether that's an email, a social media post, something like that. But you might want to like dig just a tiny bit further. So especially if they're making a really large, like monetary claim, maybe ask for like a screenshot of the back end of their sales system or something like that. I'm not saying you need their tax return or like their profit and loss statement. Another thing that we've talked about, especially if you have like an ongoing relationship with them, is to have results tracking all along the way. So maybe you have like a starting point where okay, our revenues were $10,000 a month to start. And then every month you can see, and then it was 15 and then it was 20. And then like, if it goes to 100 in 1 month, like that is a really big jump. So if it seems incongruous with their previous results, you might want to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like I'm thinking of a couple of examples of this that just from programs that I've been in. I'm in one right now where they do like a weekly wins post in the Facebook group and they're always like, screenshots are welcome. Like, please post screenshots along with it. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like
That's
to
probably
encourage people
why.
to, yeah, it's probably to help support that. And then there's another one that I was in that was more of like a high level mastermind for agencies like mine. And they did have results tracking every month. They'd be like, hey, go put in your revenue into this spreadsheet. And I think that was partly for them to just know how we were doing. But also, I'm sure that if we had a big jump, they'd be like, hey, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Show us a
We
screenshot
want
or
to feature
something.
you. Yeah. Yeah, and I love how you mentioned that, like it can be built into your program in a way that's really natural, that feels good to your clients. It doesn't have to be this big burden.
It's like exciting, to want to share those numbers. And it doesn't feel like they're doing it to be compliant or anything like that, even though that's a benefit. But yeah, it feels natural.
So the rule to remember on this first step is just you have to have a reasonable basis to believe that their claim is true. A quick plug here is if you are like grabbing a screenshot of something they posted or you're sharing, their picture with their whatever they told you, it's a good idea to have a release for that. So to make sure you get their permission to share that, we have a form for that. You can send them a quick email and just like send it, keep it in your file. It doesn't have to be super complicated. But just like having all of that buttoned up, what you never want is somebody shared something in a private group that they did not think was going to be made public. And then like you're using it in an ad and they, it's all over the internet and they did not intend for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually had my brand designer, Dina, like she's like created workbooks and stuff in the past for clients once that were really long and had lots of screenshot testimonials. And she was like, I don't know if this client got permission from all of these people, but like, it's not really her job to like ask
Right.
that or,
Right.
but sometimes we as designers were like, okay. But now I do try, like now that I've been educated by you a little bit more, I do try to kind of bring up that stuff just because sometimes clients don't think about it.
Yeah. And it's a nice courtesy as well. It helps keep that relationship good. Yeah. So then step 2, after we have a nice testimonial that we know is true, is we have to see whether it is typical of kind of your customers as a whole. So it doesn't have to be exactly average. It doesn't have to be like right in the middle, but the word they use is typical. And this is where tracking is also so key, because how do you know if, that $10,000 day that somebody had, how do you know if that's typical if you're not monitoring kind of what all of your students are doing? So we talk about generally expected results. Again, this is most important with those monetary or health and wellness, like any kind of weight loss, things that have numbers associated with them. Tell me any questions you have, Jenny, about figuring out if something is typical.
If something isn't typical, or you feel like, oh, maybe, like I've had a client that was like, oh, Jenny, I asked her for some feedback on, because she'd been using her sales page for like a year, and she was like, I've had like multiple 7-figure launches using the sales pages you designed for me. And I was like, well, that feels probably not super typical of most of my clients who aren't running Facebook ads and stuff as aggressively as she is. So like, if it's not typical, does that mean that we can't use it, or do we just need to have extra disclaimers, or like?
Yes, that takes us to step 3. So now that you know, okay, if it's typical, you can just use it because that's not deceptive. It's truthful, and it's like giving a pretty accurate picture of what someone might expect if they hired you or took part in your program. If it's not typical, that's when we get to disclaimers. Again, there's not a rule about the exact wording that it has to say, but think about like what makes it not typical. So like you just said with that person with the sales page, like she was running ads, or maybe somebody comes in with a huge audience, or it's their second business, and so they already kind of know how to do things. Or maybe, they're just an incredibly hard worker, and so they are really like nose to the grindstone, way more than anybody else in your customer base. So think about what made it atypical, and there may be some language that you need to put around that, either to disclose why it's not typical, or just say, what effort was required. But you want to have a disclaimer that makes clear, this is an individual experience. Results are not guaranteed. Past success may not occur again, but with some specifics. So this is something we draft like one by one for our clients. We look at the testimonial.
There's probably not a template for that anywhere.
No. I mean, there you can find templates, but
right, on your website though.
Like, yeah, like having a results not typical, like that is not going to cut it. You have to go kind of one level deeper, if that makes sense.
It needs to be specific to their industry. So if it's like, if you're a business coach and you need to say, hey, these revenue numbers might not be typical, or if you're a weight loss coach, these kind of like weight loss numbers, or I don't know.
Yeah, if you look at a weight loss ad, there are lots of great examples. Especially like they'll talk about like she was on a 1,200 calorie diet, or she was exercising 5 days a week for 3 hours. They do a good job complying.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so we can do our research to
yes, you can see some examples
or hire you.
Yes.
That makes me think about my case study pages where I talk about that one particular client. I'm like, maybe I need to go add a little disclaimer.
Tiny disclaimer. Yeah. So when you're doing a disclaimer, it's important to know the placement is important. And this is where design comes into effect too, Jenny. I know you guys probably hate these.
But we got to do it. It's a challenge to make them look good.
Make them look as good as you can. Yeah. So this is another one. You cannot just have it on a separate page of your website, like a disclaimers page. It really needs to be close to where the testimonial is featured or where the claim is being made. Again, there's no rule that it has to be within half an inch, but it needs to be pretty close by. It can't be in the footer. If you've got a really long sales page, this can be like 10 or 20 pages long. It can't just be at the very bottom. It needs to be pretty obvious, easy to read. It can't be in like grayed out type or in like, 3-point font. It needs to be where somebody could actually read it and notice it.
That totally makes sense. That's really good for me to remember too, because I think my default, and often a client's default too, is just be like, hey, can you go put this in my footer? And I can think about a few clients that have asked me to do that.
And you're not a lawyer, it's not your job.
Right. It's not my job, but it could be, a value add for me to be like, hey, like your sales page is super long and we only have this one disclaimer and it's in the footer. Like maybe let's consider putting it like a section or two below the testimonials, or just, I don't know, like,
yeah. And I'll just mention,
like, video.
We see this done wrong all the time. So I would say that's kind of the norm. And it's kind of like speeding. A lot of people break the law. A lot of people are doing this wrong. Very few get caught. But if you do get caught, you don't really have a defense for not doing this the right way. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
better to just kind of build it in on the front end.
Yeah. Again, like not from a fear place, but just from a like, we're just checking the
We're
boxes
just
here.
doing business the right way. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll mention, and this is something honestly I didn't know about until it came across our desk a few years ago, as these FTC issues started becoming more prevalent, is if you have a money back guarantee that you're using in your marketing, there are specific rules around that. It's similar to the testimonials and any kind of results claim, in that unless your money back guarantee is literally like, all you have to do is send me an email and I give you 100% of your money back, there's really specific rules that you have to follow about letting people know if there's any hoops they have to jump through, letting them know it's generally not allowed to take out a processing fee, or even though you probably are going to lose some money on the credit card processing if that's how they paid you. If you call it a money back guarantee, you have to give them all their money back, and you need to let them know if there's going to be any hoops. You can have hoops, like that's okay, but you have to let people know on the front end. So tell me, what are you seeing with this, Jenny, in your...
Yeah, like usually for clients that have a money back guarantee, there's like a specific section on the sales page where they talk about that money back
Yeah, that's
guarantee.
great.
And we put like a cute little badge that's like, oh, 100% guaranteed or whatever. And then right below the button on that, the buy button on that section, they have some kind of sentence or two disclaimer that's like talks about the just high level conditions, and then they link to read our full money back guarantee or read the terms here.
Yeah.
It's always in the same section.
Yeah, that's great. That's another, like, and I talk about that sometimes, like you don't have to have the whole thing right there, but it needs to be easy to click if you're taking them somewhere else, or if you're mentioning it in social media, like you need to say like terms and conditions apply. You can read those here. Just,
Yeah,
it is a powerful marketing tool, I find. I'm
yeah,
sure you
and
see that
people
too.
expect that. Like, people expect that, like, "Hey, I can't just buy this and then watch all the videos and then want my money back just 'cause."
Jenny, you
Like,
would be amazed.
I mean, I know they do. Some people do that, but, like, people that are trying to be just as ethical in their consumption of our content
Right,
as we are in
right.
our creation of it, they're usually a little more reasonable. But yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
this is also a protection for you as the business owner, right? Like,
100%. Yes. Yeah. You get a chargeback, and, you can say, point to, it's very clear at the front end, like that
mhm.
they didn't qualify. The last thing I'll mention here with the money back guarantee, or sometimes we see satisfaction guaranteed, there can be implied guarantees. So you might not use the word guarantee or think that you're promising, but if you are using results claims in your marketing, like you'll get 20 clients a week if you follow my system, or like everyone who follows my system lands 20 satisfied customers, or you get the idea. Even like if you have something like that in the name of your program, it could be seen as a guarantee. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
20 clients in 10 days, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, and I've known coaches that did but they were free offers, I think. It was more like 10 clients in 10 days kind of a thing. But if it's a free offer, then I guess,
That's lower risk. Yeah.
lower
If
risk.
you have an unhappy customer, it's,
Yeah. Yeah. No big deal.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm thinking about a program that I was in where they had a guarantee, but it wasn't a money back guarantee. It was like hey, this is a sales accelerator and it's 6 weeks long, and we guarantee that you'll get 10 clients or you'll make your money back. We guarantee you'll make the same amount of money you paid for the program, or
Mhm.
we'll work with you until you
Ah.
do, kind of a claim.
So that, again, they were upfront and telling you like what the guarantee meant. And I think it is, when we get more aggressive or bold in our marketing claims. And I know a lot of people are talking now about having like a really clear program promise. I think that's great, but you may not realize that you are kind of making a guarantee with that program promise. So just be mindful and a little careful around that.
Kind of like in recap, like, we need to just make sure we're being truthful with the things that we say. And if something isn't typical, then we need to make sure we're verifying it and having a disclaimer that it's not necessarily going to reflect everybody's results. And make sure you're paying attention to the placement of those disclaimers and not hiding it, not making it hard to find. And then with money back guarantees, just thinking about that really carefully and being like, hey, make sure we've got some terms around that just to protect them, the client, but also to protect you as the business
Yeah.
owner from people that will just be like, I'm going to go watch all the videos and then ask for my money back just because I can. Yeah.
All right.
Amazing.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, thank you, Autumn.
All right, we've covered so much information here. Just to give you a quick recap of Autumn's 4 legal strategies. First, be sure you can prove that any results you're claiming actually happened. Add in disclaimers for any results that aren't typical for your audience. Make sure those disclaimers are obvious. And finally, be super straightforward about the terms and conditions of any money-back guarantees you have. If you want to really master the legal side of your business, I highly recommend checking out the Fine Print Academy. It's Autumn's 90-day program to get you legally protected. I'll include the link below along with other resources. You can also follow Autumn on her Instagram at AWB Firm. I'm Jenny Lakeman, your guide to creating a coaching website that converts.